In this video, I'm going to take another look at this sacrifice against the Kalashnikov Sicilian. I looked at this last week and, well, it's fascinating. And I've been sent a game by a viewer in exactly this line. Before we get into that, I just want to let you know that my Chessable course on the Sicilian Kalashnikov is on sale right now. So if you want to learn more about this opening, then do check it out. I'll put the links down below. And of course, you can always buy the book as well. You'll get that from your favorite bookstore, Amazon or wherever. Good, right, on with the game. Last week, I posted a video on a very interesting line against the Kalashnikov, which involves a piece sacrifice for white. And black is put under pressure at a very early stage. So there we go, e5, knight b5, the most challenging move for black, d6, so this is the Kalashnikov, knight c3, a6, now the normal move is to play knight a3, but instead bishop g5. And no sooner had I posted the video on this sacrifice than I received a message from Mark Cook, a PowerPlay viewer, who'd actually faced this move a few months ago in an online correspondence game. The time limit of 3 days per move, that's pretty slow. No computers allowed. And I'd very much like to show you the game that he sent to me, as it highlights a few issues in the position. So thank you for Mark for sending in the game. So bishop g5, just a very quick recap. If that bishop is taken by the queen, then actually white takes the rook and the knight emerges on b6 and is safe. White is the exchange up. So that's why in this position, black should play f6. But now there are two pieces on prise, two pieces that can be taken. Now you can either play knight d5 or bishop b3. In this game, bishop b3 was the move order. Pawn takes knight, and then knight d5. So white is a piece down, but threatens bishop b6. And here, in the previous video, I examined two moves, either rook a4 or bishop e6. Now, the computer prefers bishop e6, and bishop e6 was the move that Mark played. So then bishop b6 attacks the queen. Queen c8. That keeps hold of the rook. So this is exactly as I analysed. That's how their game went. And now it's best for white to delay taking here and just to take on b5. And the point is this. If rook b8, then this could be rather awkward for black. Because after this exchange, queen d3 threatens bishop c4, and the king and queen are rather uncomfortably placed. So instead of rook b8, I was advocating g6, which allows the king to slip to, well, a safer square on g6. But here is where actually Mark played a different move, which I might have mentioned actually, I can't remember. I mean, I took g6 as my main line, but instead Mark played bishop e7. And this is worth looking at because there are certain advantages to playing bishop e7 over g6. Well, one thing is what happens if, I should say that in the game, knight takes a8 was played. So what about knight takes bishop instead? And what about this idea of queen e2 and threatening a pin? Well, actually, now that the bishop has moved, then the king has a relatively safe square on f8, so it avoids any trouble. And yes, that bishop does look rather good on the diagonal, but actually black is pretty secure here. Remember, black is a piece up. I mean, positionally it looks so rotten, you need some kind of material compensation. But after this, Okay, this looks quite slow, but basically black's king finds a safe square here, and the knight comes to h6, and black is slowly emerging. And yeah, the rook can move over to the queen side, and little by little black finds his feet and is consolidating. So after bishop e7, well, knight takes bishop wasn't played, but knight takes rook was played in the game, and castles kingside. So now we're going to see one of the advantages of playing the bishop to e7, and that's that bishop d8 is possible. So with bishop e7, when the knight was on c7 as well, this is actually a very annoying move, threatening just to exchange pieces or forcing exchanges. So this is the big advantage of playing in this way over playing g6. If bishop takes, queen takes, well, I think black can be very happy here. And indeed, you can go for liberation station already. This typical advance in the Kalashnikov. Why not? You can bust out, and you have two mine pieces against a rook and a pawn, but this is a very nice pawn structure. As ever in the Kalashnikov, you get this strong kingside pawn structure, and that's better for black. So after bishop d8, white decided to play bishop e3. So avoiding the exchange leaves the bishop on the back rank, and now queen takes pawn is threatened. So bishop c7 was played, and white played f4. Right, here is where I think you should be doing a little bit of work. How should black play in this position? So black to play. You ever think, I'll have a drink? Cheers, everybody. So Mark played knight e7, just, trying to keep everything together and solid. I think it's actually inaccurate. Better to take on f4, because black is still secure on the king side. And although you might say, well, it brings the bishop into play, but actually black is going to be able to use the e5 square. I mean, as is typical in so many Sicilian positions. So after the check here, queen comes back into play, defending the pawn, also gaining time against the bishop. And then knight e7. Black is really solid here. The knight coming to g6. And although materially it's roughly level, so a rook and a pawn against two minor pieces, but because black's minor pieces are on solid squares, well protected, then black has the advantage here. Once the knight reaches e5, black can be very happy, and it's really important that the king is secure. In fact, after a check, you can put the king in the middle. Black is absolutely secure there. But there's still a long way to go, but black has the advantage. But Mark played knight e7. I mean, obviously with the intention that, just keeping everything solid, but actually after this move, f5, this is a little bit awkward, because white gains control over this diagonal, and then of course the rook is shut in, so it's less easy for black to coordinate. So white played a4, and I think this is a good idea. I mean, this is where white has this majority of pawns on the queen side, so it's good to advance them to keep pressing black. Bishop e8. Okay, this is a good idea. I mean, it's very important to try to exchange off that powerful bishop. Bishop f7. So, yeah, Mark is fighting back here. It's probably best for white to exchange and then play b4, but at least this rook can come into the game. The problem is if this rook moves away, then white uses this pawn advance on the king side to start a really powerful attack. You can see that, well, black's queen absolutely is in Siberia here. The rook swings across, and this is just an automatic attack. So you can see how that pawn has carved out territory for white on the king side. Now, rook d8 isn't forced. b6 halts this advance, but, you know, the bishop isn't too great here. I think white is better in this position. So let's go back. That's what white should have played. Instead, bishop b5. Okay, I can understand wanting to avoid exchanges, but it doesn't work out so well. Queen d8. a5. Okay, that's I'm slightly confused by that move. Basically, just gives a pawn. I guess white was just hoping to open the lines, but better to play b4 and then a5. And it's just a very unclear position, actually. But a5 played, and that was taken. g4. I mean, this kind of smacks of desperation, to be honest, with white just sort of hurling pawns up the board. Ultimately, this is going to be difficult for white's king. And knight c4. So this looks really good for black now. Yeah, king e7 played. Possible to play h5 here, or indeed g5. And I rather like g5, actually, followed by king g7 and then h5. But king e7 played. An exchange. And this must be good for black now, with two minor pieces. But at least white has managed to sort of muddy the waters a little bit. You know, the rook is on the 7th rank. It looks quite nice. Rook b8 is the best move here. But g6 played, and now queen b7 should be played, and then it's still unclear. But g5, and now the position opens on the king side, and that's very good news for black, as the king is exposed. And the king finds a safe spot on g7. And at this point, basically the writing is on the wall. You can see that black is completely secure. That nice Kalashnikov pawn is still on e5 and the pawn on d6 as well. So black, as ever, is solid in the centre. There we go. That's why Mark didn't want to exchange it off. I mean, black is winning the position now. I like this finish, actually. This is a reverse bad bishop bounce. This bishop hasn't been doing much for a few moves, but it bounces via d8 over to g5. That amuses me. Often we see this kind of maneuver in the Kalashnikov, but it's the reverse bad bishop bounce. And finally, black gets a hit at the king. And here white resigned. Yeah, this pawn is dropping, and then white's king is just way too exposed, and black's king is completely safe. So all's well that ends well. It was a bit of an up and down struggle, but I think this move, bishop e7. Sorry, let me just go back a couple of moves. I think G6 was my main line, but I think bishop e7 is very interesting. And, you know, this idea of bishop d8 in a couple of moves, I think is a very straightforward way to play, just to get rid of that very well posted bishop on b6, actually. And there's something very straightforward about it. And, you know, allows the knight to come to e7. So well played to Mark there. Nice game. And, well, I just have a funny feeling this isn't the last time we're going to be seeing this sacrifice. I suspect there are going to be more games coming with it. But theoretically, black is okay. More than okay. And I repeat, my Sicilian Kalashnikov course is on sale at Chessable. So if you're interested in learning more about this fascinating opening, it's a very good answer to e4, then do check that out. The Anti-Sicilians course is also on sale, so I'll leave the links below. Thanks for watching.